Let's talk about Maryland, because this is one of those states people think they understand. But then they get surprised once they actually start the process. A lot of founders look at Maryland because it's close to DC. It's taken seriously by banks and clients, and it works well for consulting, government-adjacent work, agencies, and professional services. But then they file the LLC, and suddenly that annual $300 requirement pops up, and they're like, wait, what is this, and why didn't anyone tell me sooner? So in this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly how to start an LLC in Maryland, how the process really works, what it costs up front, what it costs every year, and how to avoid the most common mistakes I see founders make. And stick around because near the end, I'll explain that annual filing requirement in plain English. No confusing state jargon. If you're new here, hey, I'm Bobby Casey, founder of Business Anywhere. I've helped thousands of entrepreneurs, including remote founders and international business owners, set up U.S. companies the right way. Maryland comes up a lot, especially for people doing business near D.C. All right, let's jump in. So first, why Maryland? Maryland has a lot going for it. You've got proximity to Washington, D.C., strong infrastructure, and solid credibility with banks, enterprise clients, and government contractors. For certain industries, being registered in Maryland just makes sense. The process itself is fairly straightforward, and the initial filing fee is $100, which is pretty reasonable compared to many states. The main thing you need to understand, though, is how Maryland handles ongoing compliance. We'll get to that in a minute. Before anything else, you'll need a business name. In Maryland, your LLC name has to be unique in the state and include LLC, LLC, or limited liability company. You'll want to run a quick search through the Maryland Business Express database to make sure the name is available. This step is fast, but skipping it can delay your filing. And while you're here, it's smart to think ahead. Domains, branding, social handles, a little planning now saves a lot of annoyance later. Next up is your registered agent. Maryland calls this a resident agent, but it's the same idea. Every Maryland LLC must have a resident agent with a physical street address in the state. This person or company receives legal documents and official notices for your business. If you live in Maryland, you can act as your own agent. Just know that your address becomes public record and you're expected to be available during business hours. That's why many founders, especially remote or out-of-state ones, use a professional resident agent service to keep things private and organized. All right, now let's make things official. To form your Maryland LLC, you'll file articles of organization with the Maryland State Department of Assessments and Taxation, also known as SDAT. You'll include your LLC name, resident agent information, principal business address, and management structure. The filing fee is $100, and you can submit everything online. Once the state approves it, your Maryland LLC officially exists. Now, real quick, let's talk about your operating agreement. Maryland doesn't legally require one, but skipping it is still a bad idea. An operating agreement outlines ownership, decision-making, profit splits, and what happens if someone exits the business. Even if you're a solo founder, this document helps prove your LLC is a real business and not just paperwork. Banks and payment processors often expect it, even if the state doesn't. Next, you'll want to get your EIN or Employer Identification Number. This is your LLC's federal tax ID. You'll need it to open a U.S. business bank account, hire employees, get paid by clients, and file federal taxes. The good news? It's completely free, and you can get it directly from the IRS online in just a few minutes. Now let's talk about taxes and licenses. Depending on what your business does, you may need to register with the Comptroller of Maryland for things like sales tax or employer withholding. Maryland doesn't have a general statewide business license, but certain industries and local jurisdictions do require permits. This part depends heavily on your business type, so it's worth double checking. All right, here's the part you really need to pay attention to. Maryland requires every LLC to file an annual report and personal property return every single year. This filing is due April 15th, and the fee is $300, even if your business doesn't own physical property. Miss this deadline, and you'll face late fees, penalties, and eventually loss of good standing. This is the number one thing founders don't expect when forming a Maryland LLC. Once you know about it, it's manageable, but you absolutely can't ignore it. So let's zoom out. To start and maintain a Maryland LLC, You'll choose a name, appoint a resident agent, file your articles of organization, create an operating agreement, get your EIN register for taxes if needed, and file that $300 annual personal property return every year by April 15th. Not complicated, but definitely specific. One last thing before we wrap up. Maryland is a great state, but mistakes can get expensive fast if you miss deadlines or misunderstand the annual requirements. That's why at Business Anywhere, we'll form your Maryland LLC for free. You only pay the $100 state filing fee. We also include your first year of resident agent service at no extra cost and help keep you on track with compliance. If you want to skip the paperwork and avoid surprises, check out the link in the description. All right, now I want to hear from you. Are you considering Maryland, or are you comparing a few states near DC? Drop a comment and let me know. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.